Hello everyone, it's Melanie. I thought I would show you all how I've been putting together this woven paper and how I am using some of it. I'll link to the other video down below where I showed this, but this is just a way to kind of use up the scraps that I have from the paper cutter. So like this is a combination of things that actually got trimmed off of, like these, when I was making my last journal. And then, you know, this is actual paper cutter trimmings, which some of these are way too narrow to use, but, and then some paper that book pages that I cut up because I wanted to make one that was all woven of all book pages. So that's a combination of intentionally cut paper and actual edge waste. Then I've shown you this box. This is just a box of things that have come off the paper cutter, and they're various sizes and such. So I started weaving this stuff together, and I don't know at this point which one I did first, but I've tried a couple of different ways of doing it until I arrived at the way that I think works best for me, and that's what I was going to show you. I know that the first one I did, I started, well, I know I did one where I started at the top, started at one end and wove my way this way. I did one of these where I would stitch all of the strips, like all of the horizontal or the vertical strips, stitched to one piece and then just wove all the other ones in. Anyway, it was way too complicated. So I came up with another way of doing it, which is the way I want to show you, and I thought I would share that with you. So here's some of the ones, and I stitched on top of them if you didn't see the other video. Let's see, that's stitched on every, can you see the stitching? That's stitched on every row. This one, like, I didn't stitch this row. I think this must be every other row of stitching. And then after doing those with the really bright paper, I tried some other things. Like this one is the background is a black and white photo out of a book. I think it's a street in Italy or something, and then I just wove only red through it and kept the picture intact. Here's one where I wove some fabric in with the paper, and that's book pages that have stuff on them. Oh, actually, you know, that's a whole picture too, just like this one. This is a page from a Dick and Jane book. There's the photo and there's the text, and then I just wove all the other ones in. That one's just an assortment. This one I did with the edges of scrapbook paper pads. You can see where you know, if you trim off the top edge like that, that's that one. And then this one I was doing a little more interesting kind of weave pattern. So I did actually start by stitching this together, and then I have all these strips that I'm weaving it through. So what do I do with them? Well, I haven't done a lot with them, but I did scan some of these. So I scanned and printed it, and it turned out really, really good. It looks great. And when it was time a couple weeks ago to make a new, my new composition book journal, I'm on volume 11, I used a piece of this scanned woven paper as the background for my new composition book journal. So that's what's in the background, is a print of it. It's not the actual woven paper. And then I just decorated on top of that. And then like I usually do, I put a piece of transparency film over the top of it, so nothing gets messed up. So they're really fun to make, and I thought I'd show you how I was doing it, and then maybe I'll do another video where I'll show you some ideas of how I'm using it. So this is the one that I made, and I've only done one page like this, and this was a full page, and then I've been cutting it up and using it for other stuff. But although I'm using lots of scraps, I thought for this example, when I actually show you how I'm going to weave it, I went ahead and painted some paper that I'm going to use for, I know they're super bright, but I wanted you to be able to see the weaving. If I'm doing something like this, I'm afraid you won't be able to really see what's going on. So, and it's very fundamental. I mean, this is the kind of weaving that you did in, you know, in elementary school or something. It's not complicated. But for this, I chose some large book pages that I have. These are 12 inches. This book page is 12 inches tall. So that will allow me to make a piece of woven paper that's theoretically 12 by 12, although you can't use it all the way to the edge. You'll end up, you know, having an edge kind of like that you have to trim off. So it's mostly all usable, but I took the same pieces of paper. I took 4 pieces of paper and I painted them in 4 distinct colors. There's a pink, an orange, a green, and a blue. And I'm going to use these. It's kind of Eastery, I guess. Sorry about the glare, but I'm going to use these to show you how I'm doing it. So here's what I decided. I start in the middle now, and I use my art glitter glue. Have this out the whole time. And I'm going to start with basically the center. And I think I did mention before that these strips of paper that I cut are anywhere from, say, 1/4 of an inch wide to about 3/4 of an inch wide. And just anything in between. I just hacked it. I didn't measure. I'm going to do this in 4 quadrants. I'm going to do all the green, all the orange, pink, and blue, because I think it'll be easier for you to see what I'm actually doing. So I'm going to use this glass mat to kind of line this up. So the important part here is that these 2 first pieces are at right angles to one another. So just make sure that they're relatively straight, because you're going to continue weaving around whatever you set up here, so you want to make sure that it's at right angles. If that's pink, I'm going to put blue down here. Is it on one sheet? Feels thick. And just like weaving, I mean, you know, weaving from you know, like elementary school, you know, over, under, over, under, over, under. That's all we're doing. So I'm going to put on my next piece. And when I line this up, I'm going to leave a little bit of a space. I mean, there's like 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch maybe between those. See how much space is left that I left between there? If you can avoid it, you don't want them to touch at any point on there. So what I do, I just rotate this counterclockwise and keep adding pieces to it. So technically I should be right here. And I'm going to add my orange on. So if this one, if this strip is going under this green, I'm going to go under the pink, which is going to put me over the blue. And it'll make sense once you start doing it. I think if I start saying over, under, you know, that might get confusing. And I'm not putting a lot. It's just a little dab of glue. And just like I said, make sure they don't overlap one another. Leave a little bit of a space there. And I was putting glue on anything that I can lift up. I stuck glue under. So I'm going to rotate this one, and I'm going to go back to blue. So line that up and put a little dollop of glue there, and then rotate it counterclockwise. So the next one is green, and just weave that in. It doesn't really get tricky, I don't think, until the edges. The edges are when it kind of gets tricky, in my opinion. And this art glitter glue with this tip is really perfect for this, because you can just reach under there. And if you do want to put glue down under one of those pieces, I flip it over, and that way I can put the glue on there. So see, I'm leaving a little bit of a space between everything. So there's that, and then I'll rotate again. Try to find some strips that are... And as I weave these in, you can see I'm just kind of keeping them level. And you'll just keep going this way. Just keep, add one there, and then rotate it 90 degrees. And add one here. And just double check before you glue it down, you know, that you've done your over under the correct way. Okay, see how this strip right here is a lot wider on one end than it is on the other, like that. So I'm going to find another piece that's kind of like that, that's wider on one end than the other, and I'm going to put it in here to kind of balance out the crookedness of that last one. So it's not bothering me. It's not a big deal. I'm going to put one on it so I can stay relatively straight as I'm going through here. So I don't know if we line this back up, you can see I'm still pretty much at right angles. Once I get to the outside, the last strip on each side, then I will glue at each junction, at each weave junction. So I'll glue it on one side and then I'll turn it over and glue it all on the other side so that there's glue all the way down on that. And then I'm also going to flip it over and glue all the back sides of this, since this is the outside edge. I had also been using my brayer. I got that one. Kind of make sure it's pressed down. Yeah, so that's definitely the last one on that edge. So I can probably fit one more green in here. Okay, so there's the whole thing glued out. And in real time, that took me about 28 minutes. I'm sure that I'm gonna make it so that it speeds up, but it was about 27 minutes total. So once this dries a little bit, I'm gonna stitch it. And so when I stitch this together, I've been doing it the same way. I start in the middle and then rotate it counterclockwise 90 degrees. The benefit of that is, you know, if you tried to sew all the horizontal rows or all the vertical rows at once, then you're going to end up with a lot of paper over here to the side that it's hard to fit it under the machine. So the nice thing about starting in the middle and then rotating is that you're never having to put more than a quarter or a half of the sheet underneath your machine at once. So I'm just going to start here. So I just stitched that row, I just stitched here, so then I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and go to the next one in the middle. Okay, so here it is. This is the finished piece. Let me see if I can show you close up. I stitched every row like down the center of the strip, and what you do with it at this point is up to you. If you didn't make a page that looks like this, then there's probably more options.
Anyway.
It feels really cool at this point because, there's almost so much stitching on it depending on how densely your strips are woven and how wide they are. It kind of starts to feel like fabric. And with the combination of the glue and then the stitching, I don't think it's coming apart. And I did this entire piece with a 3mm stitch length. So anyway, of course, these are just as bright. Something fun to try if you are like me and you hate throwing all these little strips of paper away. Like I said, I think it's more fun to use these actual random strips than some of these others. And you can do it really, these really wide, like that's a really wide piece. Or then there's this piece, which I'm just in love with. Those are very tiny little strips. But I love this piece. I think I'm gonna frame this one. So anyway, I will be back with another video where I'm gonna show you some of the ideas I thought of for ways that you could use this woven paper. So let me know if you give it a try or if you have any questions, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.